listeners. Welcome back to Finding Your Force with Mambo Beck and Mambo Muni. We're here as always for you, breaking chains and igniting flames. So today we've got Mambo Muni starring on her latest podcast drop. And I am really about today's session. I'm about all of our sessions, but I really like this one. And it's about the epidemic of people pleasing. So before we get deeper, don't forget to like, subscribe to Finding Your Force on your favorite listening podcast channel. Don't forget to find Mambo Muni at Keep the Clarity on Facebook and on Instagram. Like and follow so that you can get more of her amazing wisdoms. And yeah, the epidemic of people pleasing is a thing.
Yeah, you know it. You
Oh
know it.
yeah, I would say that when you first presented this, I was like, "Oh, that's a big bite there. Like where would you even start in breaking this down?" I think that, you know, as communal creatures, people are there and hardwired to try to coexist and strengthen together. But I think that as that sense of community is broken down and people have become more isolated, singular, really climbing and striving for greater autonomy away from others, more about the me versus the we. It's had this weird effect of the more that each person's kind of staying to themselves, the more they want connection in a different way. And that's like, do you like me? We've got social
Mhm.
media, likes. Everyone loved my food. They loved my this. They loved my that. And this is all this like validation coming from external sources.
Mhm.
Versus that not validation but appreciation from the contribution to the greater. And so I think it is an epidemic. I love you use that word because it's everywhere now. But I
Mhm.
think the people pleasing, as much as people are there, it's driven so much further apart, including people from themselves.
Mhm.
So I can't wait to hear your take on this because I'm ready to try to digest this very large bite. I don't even know if
Yeah,
it's a bite. I think
it's
it's like a big
large.
plate, and then we'll see what's going on.
Yeah, it's a large bite. So, yes, epidemic. And actually, the way you touched in on it reminded me of a future collab that is going to be probably good for us, which is the epidemic of loneliness. And isn't it wild? There are two, when you think about it, kind of paradoxical epidemics of like loneliness. I want people pleasing, which is like to placate that, what you're saying. But then when people are like in that space of people pleasing, they just want to isolate because they're exhausted and they get irritated by people. They get salty about people. So I feel like you have people almost like ping ponging in this like, fuck you, society. I don't want to be like you. I'm tired of people pleasing. So I'm going to isolate. And then you have people battling with loneliness. And the way you framed it reminded me of that. There's
I love
like
it, and I can't
how
wait for
people,
that collab.
yeah, project that people pleasing. So people pleasing, like going back to, I think that one of the areas we both specialize in, we'll say in turn, the intention of this, of helping people find their force, ignite their flame. A lot of what people are dealing with that is a block to this is people pleasing. And particularly in the work I do, going back to like people who are weak and helping them become their inner badass bitch that they are. So many people in that weakness, part of the one of the biggest things they're actually navigating and having to break through is people pleasing.
Mm.
And people pleasing and codependency go hand in hand. I'll focus more on the word people pleasing today, but in how I describe people pleasing, you'll see how they kind of go hand in hand and are these massive forces, these epidemics that essentially block people's empowerment. Some people identify with people pleasing so strongly that it is their identity. So how much people suffer with people pleasing really varies person by person. And for some people, people pleasing equals self.
Yeah, that one was a big bite by itself.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
people deal with this at various levels. And so one of the things I want to start off with, I'm going to get really kind of nerdy clinical for a second. And there's a few reasons like why people pleasing has become an epidemic, I'm going to say. One of them is it's almost like the nature, how we are raised from the moment we're born. It's like food for people pleasing, food for becoming a people pleaser. Human development and the process of individuation that many of our listeners are on, of like finding your force, that individuation, that coming to your birthright, all of that, is this totally paradoxical experience to actually the condition you're born into. So when we are born, from the moment we're born, and I'm going to repeat this lesson in different variations, probably in different podcasts, because it's such a big one and it goes so deep. But from the moment we're born, we have no choice but to rely on people for survival.
Absolutely.
Literally, from the moment we're born, if there isn't another being there, at least one primary caregiver, giving us food, touch, and movement when we need, taking care of our health, hygiene. From the moment we're born, if we don't have somebody to depend on, we will die. So this is the condition of humans that we're born into, is that we are born dependent on humans. And then as we, literally for survival, and then as we develop, and there's different developmental stages, that people talk about, but as we develop, most of what we are getting fed or reflected back to us that helps us develop into healthy, functioning young adults, so on and so forth, comes from other people. So the primary caregiver is that initial one also that often creates the space of reflection to be teaching you, like, are you capable of doing things? Teaching you empowerment from that early on. Are you capable? Are they giving you the freedom to explore and make mistakes so that you learn that you're capable? Are they reflecting love back to you, unconditional love? And these things shape these very important developmental milestones for us. Learning that we're capable, learning that we belong, learning that we can connect with others. So there's all these things that we learn all the way through like our late adolescence into young adulthood that we learn via connecting with humans. It's unavoidable. So somewhere along that journey, most people in some way, shape, or form become people pleasers to confirm their reality. Okay. Let's say in a family system, like
Mm-hmm.
in someone's own family, what can happen a lot of times is, not always, but what can happen a lot of times is that the person's like, hey, these are the people I've depended on for survival unconsciously. This is who puts a roof over my head, food in my mouth. Now, if what they say is that I should be like this as a person, this is what I should look like, this is what profession I should choose, this is who I should choose to love, this is the God I should choose to believe in. All these things that get spoon fed, when they're spoon fed from the very people we depended on, oftentimes we then try to become people pleasers because if we don't fit into those molds, it can feel like life or death.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
loneliness, that going back to a very infantile state of being that we all have, that we're born with, loneliness can feel like death.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, I'm going to preserve what I need to preserve via people pleasing, preserve the structures that keep me safe and the people in it.
Mm-hmm.
So people pleasing goes back to the basic human need that we're born with for survival and connection to other people. And the basic things that people chase and chase and chase and chase until they heal is to avoid rejection, loss, and abandonment. And another one that Papa Hector taught me, entrapment too, which is an interesting one. But most of what people are chasing and doing is to avoid these deep human fears. And can you see how people pleasing connects into all of those things?
Absolutely. So, in essence, what starts as a necessity is not being shed once it's now
Thousand
not
percent.
necessary. Because as we develop, as we grow, if we're growing successfully, we're able to do many things by ourselves without depending on another for, say, for instance, our shelter or our food or things of this nature. But that hardwire from the beginning is now kind of influencing, like unduly, like way more than it needs to, how we're moving as people, like through
Mhm.
our more independent years.
Exactly. 100%. That's exactly it. And that is the very space, this paradoxical space that we encounter of what is, who am I really?
Mm-hmm.
Not in relation to what others have been feeding me or telling me I can be, which is very connected to actually another podcast we did where you talk about the weed and the grass.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it that I'm that? And then, but what is this me as an individual and how do I fit in? So it's really about finding the balance of healthy individuation that then leads to healthy sense of connectedness, love with others, healthy
Mm-hmm.
collectivism. And
Mm-hmm.
this it's this very interesting paradox that we face because we're like, wait a minute, but I've spent my whole life, this is unconsciously what's happening in us. I've spent my whole life depending on people. And then to what you were saying, we reach this point where it becomes imbalanced. It doesn't stop. We don't turn off the button of trying to confirm the reality of our existence and our sense of safety in it without like devouring other people. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
need other people. That's what we're doing all the time. And we can't turn it off as adults. We're like, I need other people. And you're like devouring the validation, the reflection, the love, the whatever, to literally, you're devouring that. And that's how you think you're allowed to exist, all the way down to your basic existence. And then we have to face this thing of like, wait, now I have to undo all that. I got to
Mm-hmm.
undo what I spent my life doing. I think it's hilarious. Okay. And at a cosmic level, based on what I'm saying here, right? At a cosmic level, the human condition is like a mind fuck.
I mean, absolutely. Which
Yeah.
is why it's an
Yeah.
amazing ride.
Yeah. When we talk about like eating the forbidden fruit, you're gonna eat the fruit the second you're born here.
Yeah.
You're going to be given the tests of loneliness. You're going to be given the tests of abandonment, the tests of loss, the tests of connecting to worldly temptations that can get out of balance. All this stuff we're like thrown on this planet for. And like, and then suddenly you have to like, you've ate all that to develop. You've become this being. And now you're like, I got to stop eating this. I got to find out who I am for myself. So it's like it's a wild thing, but coming back to people pleasing, this is hopefully what I'm saying here really illustrates this like epidemic piece of it. People are like devouring like toddlers and infants the perspective and need for other people's approval to justify their existence at its core. And this is why it's an epidemic, among many other things. There's other factors that can come in. Culture, and especially my experience, a lot of clients I work with come from cultures that I guess you would identify as collective. And this can strengthen the imbalance of people pleasing in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it comes with its strengths, healthy values of collectivism, cultural aspects can add to it.
Yep.
So, like, I come from a family system, right? Southeast Asian culture where you're taught from a very young age that, like, everything you do reflects on your family and to respect your elders and respect your parents. And so you're like, hey, if I don't fit the mold, my whole family is going to come crashing down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see that ties back into fear of abandonment, fear of rejection.
What a
If
pressure
I'm
to
the,
be
if
holding.
I'm, yep. Yep. If I'm the one that brings shame to my family, then I potentially lose relationships with my family. It all
Yep.
comes back to those fears.
Yep.
So people pleasing is an epidemic because literally people pleasing gives people a false sense of safety in the world. So
Yeah.
that's a lot about the why, I know, like why it exists, why it's an epidemic.
No, I mean, I think to understand why it's an epidemic is kind of critical to understanding why, like the magnitude of the impact. Because the impact is small if it's only here. The impact is huge to like we want to think about global community health balance and betterment. That's it's impacting everyone. And
Hmm.
when you were talking about, the validation of like one's own existence, I was literally thinking about like Pixar it didn't happen. Like you could have these amazing experiences, do all this awesome stuff. Maybe you're the only one there. And it's that validation of like, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. See me.
Hmm.
Tell me that I did good. Tell me that this is something that's awesome. Tell me that you appreciate this aspect because this helps me say what I did mattered.
Hmm.
And if it mattered, then I matter. And so I think you hit a really deep root there of that association, what that chain of association is, and how people identify themselves,
Hmm.
and where that can really start causing some gnarly imbalance.
Hmm.
Because if I'm getting what you're saying, a lot of people are looking at the identification of themselves as purely dependent on others versus being able to see themselves as existing of their own.
Hmm. Yep.
Ooh,
Totally.
oh yeah.
Totally. So, there's a lot that if we wanted to go ahead and talk about, like why it's important to resolve this, the imbalances here and how to go about it. By nature, a lot of what you and I will talk about, in this podcast is going to get at that by nature. And, also what I want to say as we kind of wrap this one up is it's easy to shame our inner people pleaser and kind of hate it when you're in a journey. I know I did. Every time I had to face it and like how much control this inner people pleaser had, the impact it was having on my health, mental, emotional, all that. Like, it can be an easy thing to feel like you hate it. You hate that part of you. You're ashamed of that part of you. But hopefully, one of the things that comes across as I talk about this developmental perspective in it is it's something that is with us to protect us for a while. People
Mhm.
pleasing is a protective mechanism. She served a thing. She did a thing. Your inner people pleaser. And at some point when she's ready to fall away, right? I think that's where so much of the work that's focused on your spirit that we do is so important. You cannot stop depending on other people incessantly to define who you are and validate who you are without calling in your higher spirit, like without calling that part of you in, and to have faith that there is a larger you that can govern your journey of shedding the part of you that's chronically people pleasing. And it might feel like a big mystery to some people. So,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of life then? If I'm not doing X, Y, and Z to help other people, serve other people, what does it look like? Right. And I think you and I have reached a point in our development, even doing this podcast, of like, there's a space where you'll reach in yourself where the people pleaser drops away. You trust in your spirit and what just organically wants to unfold in that. And in that unfolding, you will find love and connection on this planet. I think a lot of fear of letting go of that people pleaser, unconsciously, people are like, if I don't do that, then what? I'm going to be bitter and alone on this planet? No, it has nothing to do with connection and love. So just to kind of have faith in that journey, however it begins for people, is kind of what I'll leave us off on. But I'm excited to talk more in a collaborative way with you about some of the stuff that came up today.
Absolutely. Listeners, this was a powerful one. I know it hit me. I'm sure it was hitting you. This was a big one because it's really talking about a true mother root of an area that impacts, influences our existence as adults, as young adults, even as early as teenagers. And I mean, this was a wowza one. Mambo Muni. This was amazing. And I think the one thing that you really, really hit on, and I can't wait to collab on this later as well, is that you touched on fear. And fear is one of
Mhm.
the biggest mother roots of them all. And you do have to face your fears to find your force. One must happen for the other to occur. And so I think You Left Us was a probably one of the best not trailer. What is it? Cliffhanger. There we go.
Oh, nice, Logo.
For like future session. Um, but I hope you guys enjoyed and got as much out of this as I did. Listeners, we appreciate you. There are many podcasts you could choose. We're so grateful that you're choosing ours to listen to and sharing this experience with us and us sharing it with you. So until next time, don't forget, we glow brighter together.
Yes.
So stay lit.